Hey, what's happening, everybody? It's Robert Phoenix. Good morning. I'm having a bit of a challenging time with the technology today. Just let me get that up front. Bit of a challenging time with the technology. That is the way that it goes. I can't see what's happening on my end of the digital equation. So we're gonna fly blind today because apparently uh, you can see it on your end because I've looked at the homepage, 15 Minutes of Flame homepage, and I've looked at what's going on over on YouTube, and you can see it. And I guess that's all that counts. What's going on? I decided to get a little cowboy this morning, my power coffee. Get real excited about October. Got it all mapped out, got it all planned out. We've got a really, really fantastic time in store for everybody who's going to be attending Harvest Moon in the Hill Country. Our days are going to be packed. You're going to get here and you're going to try to soak it all up, get as much in as possible because it's going to end. It'll be 3 days of intense and condensed, action packed, fun, learning, laughing, connecting, eating great food, and being in Texas at the absolute best time of the year is that second week in October. It's still warm enough to jump into the pool, but it's not so warm that it would preclude from hiking. Whoa, the J-Man is here around Enchanted Rock. So anyway, got the cowboy hat on today. Kind of get you into the spirit of things. Get you all into the spirit of things. So, Jasper, do you have anything you want to share with your loving and adoring audience? Somebody set you up with your own email account, by the way. Did you know that? He's got his own email account now. Pretty soon he'll have his own show. One day you'll just pop on here and this is all you'll see. That's it. That's all you'll see is the J-Man. You know, he has this ability to actually get people who don't like cats to like cats. He's a cat ambassador. He's a cat ambassador to the human species. He will win over any ardent cat hater. How could you hate this guy? How could you hate Jasper? There's no way. See, now he wants a little of the whiskers. There he goes. He wants the whiskers. The whiskers are an important ritual. It's an important ritual for the international tabby. By them bearing their whiskers to you, they're showing you that you have become a part of their family. All right, there's a lot going on. Jeffrey Epstein is still somewhere in the deep state witness protection program. I seriously doubt that we're going to have this thing resolved anytime soon. And as we saw with Barr's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous sort of solution, which was just to fire the head of the prison system. Oh, we're going to fire you because we extradited Jeffrey Epstein, and somebody's got to take the blame. It's not going to be me. It should be him. It should be him. Talked about this yesterday. He should fall on the sword. I am the head. I am the Attorney General. It all falls upon my shoulders. That was a federal prison. I'm going to step down. Would they ever do that? No. They would never do that. Ever. Ever. What's going on in Chatlandia? How are you guys doing over there? Let's see who we got. Cowboy Hat Wednesdays. Wow, great show here. Gone back. Beat that Copperfield. Does Jasper have a cowboy hat too? I don't know. That's a really, really good idea. Really good idea. Jasper, should we get you a cowboy hat? Get a little buffering today. I'm not sure why. Get some buffer action. It's okay. All right, so what's going on? How is everybody? Let me just do a quick little check in the chat room again. I didn't get to greet you guys. We got Mary, no picture. Oh, there's Isla. There's Sticky. There's Very Texas, big hat. Yes. And then we got Jennifer. Hi, Jennifer. Errol. Daryl, she'd watch the Jasper show. Would you watch the Jasper? I'm going to stick my butt in the camera show because that's what he's about to do. I don't think so. I don't think so. Jasper the pencil sharpener exhibitionist. Hello, everyone. There's coniferous forest. Jasper is looking good. I feed Jasper nothing but the best food. You know what I feed him? I feed the same thing every day. Same thing every day. HEB chicken. He loves it. Loves it. I used to feed them a variety of food, and then they puked a lot. So I realized that maybe variety isn't really what cats. Like I was superimposing my need for variety onto their diet. Didn't work. Didn't work at all. So today's title, the title of today's show is Welcome to China, because that's really what's going on. That's really what's going on. I found an article by Paul Craig Roberts, which I'm not going to read today, but I will put it up in the links of these. It's a long article. And basically, he says that they transferred the U.S. economy to the Chinese economy. That's what the globalists did. That's exactly what they did. They empowered the Chinese economy. And look, there are a number of Chinese people who I think are great. One of my favorites is my buddy Marv, who I think sometimes watches the show. Lives in California. Love Marv. Great guy. And I'm not saying this to have a personal sort of smack on Marv or the Asian culture, Chinese culture specifically. But what have the Chinese invented since firecrackers and spaghetti? I'm not sure. Right? It's a industrial culture that does not innovate. What it does is it's really good at copycatting. And there's a place for it, right? But it's not an innovative culture. And this is the culture that they want to superimpose on top of our culture, which is already happening. So there's this transference that's been taking place, right? With basically moving most of our businesses offshore into China. Now, because of the tariffs, those businesses are moving out of China, which is kind of interesting. They're going to places like Taiwan and primarily the Philippines. The Philippines are going to be the big winners out of the tariff war that's going on with China right now. But it's having an impact on the U.S. I'm not sure it's driving the same kind of jobs and innovation that Trump was very keen on at the beginning of his presidency, which was back in, of course, 2017. In fact, I just saw that, if I'm not mistaken, General Motors or Ford could be laying off quite a few people. I think about 10% of their workforce domestically, which doesn't really bode well, because they're going to be going towards the electric car, the electric truck. In the future, nobody will own anything. I mean, that's kind of the plan, right? You can rent cars. They'll have very short distances built into their capability. Like you won't be able to go very far. Maybe the most you'll be able to go with a car might be 100 miles or something like that. And you need a recharge. And in order to get a recharge, you probably have to have a retinal scan, or you probably have to be connected to the B system in order to recharge your car. And if you're not going to get a recharge, and then there you go, you're stranded 100 miles away. That's where I think things are going. So when you look at somebody, I believe it's Ford, if I'm not mistaken, who's doing these layoffs, they're doing the layoffs in anticipation of the fact that they're not going to be making the same cars that they used to. People aren't buying cars at the same rate. Millennials don't have the same interest in cars that other generations have had. Millennials, and I don't want to make a broad generalization here because it's never a good thing, but millennials seem to be more inconvenienced than they are about freedom, which is a very different thing. Okay? Convenience and freedom are very different. In order to be free, you have to have some responsibility. You've got to take some responsibility for your freedom. You've got to be able to, if you want to be independently employed, basically, unless you're super smart, got in on Bitcoin when it was a twinkle in Satoshi's eye, then you got to work your ass off. I'm right here. It's what I do every single day. I work my ass off. In order, why? In order to be free, theoretically, as free as I can be, which allows me to live my lifestyle. And I don't have to go to a corporate job. I don't have to go to a semi-corporate job. I can basically work for myself, tend to the needs of others, and provide you with content. That takes a lot of work. It frees me up in some ways because I can do this out of my home. And basically, if I wanted to, I could go on the road, which I've been thinking about, doing a little roadie. But that's what it does. That's what it does. It would be more convenient in some ways if maybe perhaps I worked for somebody else out of my home. That'd be very convenient, but that's not the way it is. So I think there's different values. Convenience and freedom are two different things. Convenience is easy. It's easy. Freedom is not so easy. So we're being basically morphed into this kind of Chinese model, capitalist social democracy. And we're already seeing what's taking place with what's happening on YouTube and on Facebook and on, to some extent, even Gmail/Google. You've got to play the game. You've got to play ball. If you don't play ball, if you don't say the right things, don't cover the right topics, if you tend to be too forceful or too opinionated about a specific or particular group, you're out. You're gone. And that's sort of the Chinese style of censorship that China already has in place. And here we'll get potentially even worse, especially if they have background checks, deeper background checks, red flag laws, and basically targeting you and saying, well, you can't go on this trip, or you can't take this plane, or you can't have these supposed luxuries. This is what happens in China. And it's very close to happening here. There are a number of people who have been cut off from their banking system, either vis-a-vis through PayPal or from their own regular physical bank. It's happening. They don't like what you're talking about. They think that they're doing business with bad people. They'll let you go. They'll cut you loose. And it's a business decision. And we looked at yesterday how 188 companies have decided to put quote-unquote people over profits, which I think is a bunch of horse shit. What they're really going to do is they're going to socially engineer or put the finishing touches on our social engineering. That's what they're going to do. They're going to claim that it's in our best interest, that they really care about us, and they're sacrificing so much money in order to do it. But again, that's going to be a Chinese-style kind of operation, where you have corporations and businesses and the state all kind of merging together into one perfect order, the fascisti. So I'm going to kind of continue to talk about some of this today. Now, I can't see what I'm going to show you here. It's kind of difficult. I'm not sure why this has turned out to be this way, but hopefully I'll be able to see it on your end. So this is what China is doing. You got to check this out. So just as we are implementing the Chinese style of what I would call consumer censorship or corporate censorship, China is beginning to adopt the same kind of sexual model that we're trotting out and bringing to our schools through sex education and the proliferation of what I would call deviant sex models. Deviant sex models. And, I guess we can make a case again that a person has a right to choose. If you get a grown-ass adult and they want to have, a rim party with another grown-ass adult, they can do that. They can do that. But share that information with children, well, that's a whole other deal. So let's get into this. This is the China. This is what, and I can't see this at all. Let me see if I can try this. I can't see it at all. So there's something going on my end technically, and I've just got to make sure that I can see it over on your end, because that's what really counts. So give me a few minutes and let me just see if the good ship Phoenix here can project this image, which I think it can. I just have to make sure that it does. The tech today is terrible, I gotta say. And I'm going on my most robust connection, and I'm buffering all over the place. I can see that. It's taking so much time today. Let's see what we got here. Just got to make sure we get this graphic up. If we don't have the graphic up, then I'm not going to be able to get into this directly, so I'm just going to have to riff. I apologize. Sometimes these things happen. Here we go. There's the black screen. You can't see it. That's what I was looking for. And let me get back to my image, which is me. And here we go. So I'm not going to be able to show you guys any images today. I apologize for that. I have to go into my technology a little bit deeper and get it sorted out. So, but you will get to see me, and I get to riff. Basically, I'm going to read this to you because that's what I was going to do anyway. And what we're seeing is we're seeing a globalized manual for sex education. Now, it's been rolled out in the UK, it's been rolled out in Canada, and parents are not happy about some of the ideas that are being forwarded to their kids. So what I want to do is I'm going to put this link in the chat box so you guys can at least access this, and I'll put it in the show page as well. So let me throw this link in here so you guys can see it. Let me go to the 15 side. There's that. Throw that in. Jasper is being very good. We're at the end of Leo, huh? We're at the final sign. We're at the final sign of final day of Leo. Actually, tomorrow is the 22nd. Yeah. Shout out to my girl Linda Dallaire in California. Happy birthday, Linda. Looks like this year has turned out to be a pretty good one for you. And next year looks even better on the horizon. One of the most beautiful, most kind, most loving, gentle, soulful people I've ever met. My good friend Linda, wishing you a very, very happy birthday. All right, let me get back to this China piece because I was going to put it in the show page, and everything is kind of about the tech, which I apologize for. All right, so let me get in here. And let's throw this in. Hey, Steve, how about my A's last night? Other than Chris Davis, I think they're looking pretty good. Can't get the link in here. Man, oh man, oh man. Challenging. Very challenging tech day today. There we go. Let's see if that'll work. Screen is black. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I've been having some issues on the let me just get into this. This is from The Enemy, Huffington Post, but it's good to understand what they're all excited about, what they're all hot and bothered, hot and turned on about. So it says, China just put our sex education to shame. So Stu Nugent, he's a writer at Lelo, L-E-L-O, and this is the world's leading pleasure brand. Below discusses the introduction of a new sex education syllabus in China and how it might cause some consternation for Western educators. So this guy basically works for a sex toy company or a sex toy website. So we know where this is going to go. And if you have sex toys, I got no judgment around that. It's your body. There's something interesting happening in China. It's something that many of us here in the West have been fighting for, wrestling with for decades. And yet in China, a country with a population more than the US, Australia, Russia, and all of Europe combined, they did it overnight. Yeah, why did they do it overnight? Because they're a fucking dictatorship. That's why. They didn't have to think about how it was going to impact their people, or they didn't think about how it was going to impact their re-election process. No, they're a dictatorship. Of course, they can do anything they want overnight. The Chinese government has just overhauled its sex education curriculum, and the content should leave us all just a little bit embarrassed at the state of our own. It's not just good, it's surprisingly progressive. Subheading, the Great Wall of Vagina. Some context, China's regulations governing sex and sexual activity are simultaneously very complex and very vague. There are some elements that are liberal and others that are confusingly conservative. For example, sex toys and condoms are sold at the counter in every little shop in every major city. Seriously, walk up to the counter. From left to right, it's coffee, breath mints, chewing gum, condoms, lube, vibrators. Why wouldn't it be? In a country that's been desperately trying to manage its population for the last 40 years, it doesn't make sense. Doesn't it make sense that masturbation and contraception are so enthusiastically promoted? Sex for pleasure then seems to be warmly embraced in China. Oh, yeah. But only at first glance, because China is similar to its laws regarding nebulous crimes like hooliganism. There's a law against something that roughly translates to group licentiousness. It's not often enforced, but a couple of years ago, a 53-year-old computer scientist received a 4-year sentence for organizing a wife-swapping party. If you're a member of the Communist Party, a new regulation prohibits you from sexual activity that might bring the party into disrepute via improper sexual relations without any guidance whatsoever on what constitutes impropriety. That's a typical communist trick. They don't tell you what you've done wrong, but you've done something wrong, and then you spend an inordinate amount of hours trying to right the wrong, not knowing what the wrong was in the first place. The Little Red Sex Book. Sex work is officially illegal, but it's easily available everywhere. And since 2013, parlors have enjoyed some deregulation. Homosexuality is absolutely legal and relatively common, but poorly understood, bureaucratically speaking. The legal age of consent is 14, but teenage pregnancy is very unusual. Draw your own conclusions on that. What comes from all this is a sense that China is very much a country getting to grips with its own sexuality, as a culture still mired in revolution and upheaval. This is a culture in an emotional and moral conflict, as it struggles to reconcile the gulf between sex for pleasure and sex for procreation, fighting to understand the impact of the liberalization of sex on its conservative cultural heritage and its economic future. This is a puzzling dichotomy, especially since China is by far and away the world's most prolific producer and exporter of the sex toys sitting in your bedside drawer right now. How can a country that's so nervous about its own sexuality be simultaneously producing the bulk of the world's most sexually progressive products? Year of the Cock. It's for reasons like this that Chinese parents have long been crying out for a comprehensive overhaul of their children's sex education. This week, those cries were answered. Already rolled out into schools across the sprawling country, the new sex education curriculum begins at second grade level, or around 8 years old. Children are taught about the basic logistics of sex, and then far, far more besides. The curriculum includes a series of 12 colorful books that cover not only issues of sex, but of hygiene, social integration, emotional development, self-esteem, and much more. Through illustrations, in simple language, they introduce the fundamentals of gender equality, encouraging children to believe that they can be whatever they want to be, regardless of gender. That's a very important point, because this is a global platform now. This is a global directive. That the transgender push is globalized. And if you think China is doing it because they're so progressive and they've been sitting around with their legs crossed and their eyes crossed or doing Tai Chi every single morning for the majority of their lives, and that they automatically received the Enlightenment download, well, you're wrong. It's not coming from any sense of deeply empathic and compassionate Buddhist values. No, not in the least. A transgendered society is a society that moves away from biological procreation. And procreation, the state in the future wants to control everything. 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 And that includes procreation. And so by taking procreation out of the hands of the procreators, guess what? They get the market on procreation. So promoting transgenderism is a means towards that end. It's one of those means towards that end. Images of reproduction are intimate and explicit. They're cartoonish but not patronizing. Oh, isn't that nice? The books cover in detail a topic that's depressingly underrepresented in Western sex education: consent. Not only does the book empower children to start taking responsibility for their own bodies surprisingly early, it also teaches the importance of their ability to offer or refuse consent. What's more, it shows the potential sexual abusers can be women as well as men. Oh, okay. In one grade 2 book, an uncle calls his niece, "Hong, you've grown so beautiful. I've bought you a vest. Can you take off your t-shirt so I can help you put on your new vest?" The niece replies, "Thanks, uncle, but I can put my own clothes on and don't need your help. Dad is in the kitchen making lunch, and I need to help him." In another far less subtle, aunt tells her nephew, "Jun, you've grown so tall now. Take down your pants so auntie can see if your penis has also grown longer." The boy says, "No, I'm going home now." And he tells his parents about it when he gets home. He goes on to show the child being praised for his parents, who in turn go on to tell the police. That's his aunt, by the way. That's his aunt. Promoting snitch culture. The page below talks about the importance of expressing your feelings when your parents argue. What's most impressive in these books is the sense of individuality and personhood they're attempting to bestow on their readers. It's far beyond sex education. It's sociosexual education. By grade 4, students are being introduced to same-sex desires and relationships. The following page shows that love should be respected in all its forms. So what you see is a lot of it's a guy-on-guy thing. They're sitting together, reading a book. Guy on girl, they're flying a kite together, and then girl on girl, the girl's sitting down, and the other girl's got her head on her lap, looking up into her eyes, thinking, "Oh my God, I wish we could be together forever." Grade 5 talks about the place of love in relationships and how it's a beautiful thing in all forms. At this stage, they're exposed to the risks of sex with information about STIs and safe sex. Grade 6, further information about sexual minorities. Let's say books going to cover non-binary expression and even bisexuality. Then perhaps the most surprising turn, relationship dynamics. After dealing with what might be considered traditional, non-traditional models, the textbooks go on to support people who choose to be single, as well as those who choose to be partnered, stating whatever you choose in life, that's your right, and you deserve to be respected for it. Unless, of course, you decide that you want to be a Catholic and have a lot of kids. Because in China, quite frankly, not your right. It won't be your right. The following image talks about divorced people and single people. Words, we should respect those who want to live a single life. Don't pressure them. Of course. You want to atomize the family. That's exactly what they're doing. So China is basically rolling out the model for the rest of the world. The rest of the world is already rolling out this model. It's being rolled out in the UK. It's being rolled out in Canada. There's a big deal in Canada right now where in Ontario, parents are working on an opt-out for the sex ed program in their education. I think this is the front lines. The schools we know are the front lines. And what China is doing is China is participating in the global model of sexual reorientation and sexual re-education. And some of you may say, well, that's a good thing. What about the parents? Don't the parents have a say in how they raise their kids? No, because in China it's the state. The state controls everything. Everything. From the cradle to the grave, including your family, including ultimately your reproductive rights. And what we're seeing is a merging of these two models. And this has been going on for a while now. So another story that I ran into, which was something that is pursuant, is this is from the College Fix. It says, study, nearly 4/5 of gender minority students have mental health issues. Depression, self-injury also common. The significant majority of transgender variant students experience mental health issues, a new report shows. That statistic is greatly higher than for the general population. So I've talked about this before. A long time ago, I did a show that was basically about how kids in high school, their chances of either contemplating suicide or committing suicide were greatly enhanced once they opened up the transgender portal. The statistics were there. So what was really interesting when I read that disturbing article, probably a couple of years ago now, I think it was last year, what was really disturbing about it was that it was the mental health professionals who were encouraging these young people to move towards transgenderism, that it was actually better for their mental health. But when they got there, it turned out to be actually worse for their mental health. And there have been suicides. Kids have committed suicide or attempted suicides. And that blood theoretically should be on the hands of the practitioner. It never is, though, because they've got a different kind of agenda. And it doesn't involve empathy, compassion, or feeling. What it does is it involves remodeling. Remodeling the individual, remodeling society. Right? Let me read this. The study published in the American Journal of Preventive Medicine, so this is not some fly-by-night journal, examined responses from more than 65,200 students from several dozen different American institutions. Inside higher ed reports, around 1,200 of those students said they had an alternate gender identity, meaning they do not identify with the gender that matches their sex. The number of those students who reported mental health issues was staggering. Almost 80% of these gender minority students reported having at least one mental health issue, compared to 45% of their cisgender peers, students whose gender aligns with their assigned sex. So 80 to 45. It's a big swing, 35% swing, significant. The study's lead author, health professor Sarah Ketchen-Lipson, said the findings were not unanticipated. The direction of the findings is not surprising, says Lipson, but the fact that there are these disparities, the magnitude of that disparity as a researcher, it makes you take a step back and run the numbers over and over. Yeah, they should keep you up at night, is what they should be doing. More than half of gender minority students, 58%, screened positive for depression, according to the study, and 53% of them reported having intentionally injured themselves in a way that was non-suicidal. Less than 30% of cisgender students screened positive for depression, and 20% reported for non-suicidal self-injury. Those numbers are still very high, by the way. They're still very high. 3% of gender minority students had attempted suicide, compared to less than 1% of cisgender students. The study found more than one-third of gender minority students said they had seriously considered suicide. One campus official claimed that every school should have a trans experienced therapist, not at least one trans-identified therapist, and should have at least one support group specifically for trans students. So that's just like insane. Instead of looking at the actual statistics, which is saying you go down this path and there's a really good chance that your mental health is going to deteriorate, instead, he says, I'm thinking it's a he, they say, well, let's provide more services so we can create more of a sense of acceptance around your deteriorating mental health and your psychological disturbance. Let's just bring in the troops and reinforce that more so we get more numbers. These things are very tenuous. They are so tenuous. Basically when people are in a bad state, they're looking for some kind of approval, some kind of recognition. They want to be heard. They want to be seen on some level. However, that can be very temporary. How many times have you had a really good talk with somebody and you felt better for a while afterwards, and then 2 to 3 days later, some of your old issues began to crop up and you had to deal with them again? They don't really go away that way. You can get some relief. It's good to talk to people. I talk to people for a living. Right? It's good. It's good. It has an impact. It can have a good effect. But at the end of the day, it's not going to be necessarily some health professional who's going to continue to reinforce your global gestalt or your personal gestalt. It's not going to work that way. At some point, the individual has to have a much more solid formation, a solid rock, the Plymouth Rock of their own consciousness, a rock of Gibraltar. And for people of the religious persuasion, it is their faith, it is God. It is unshakable, that no matter what happens, they know that they're going to be protected, they're going to be loved, they're going to be taken care of, they're going to be shown what to do. And in many cases, this is actually the case, because their belief and their faith is co-creating with a certain bandwidth of consciousness. That's how it works. That's how it works. And I believe that that bandwidth of consciousness is universal. Now, it doesn't have to look the same way as you going to church every morning or every Sunday and putting a piece of, the coin of the realm in the tray. It doesn't have to work that way. It's all within you. It's all within. And if you can connect with that in a solid, substantial way, know that force, that universal force, the cosmic Christ, everything that's around us, the earth, what's beyond the earth, the stars, the firmament, the galactic center, the black hole, the whole thing, it's all inside of you. When you begin to wrap your head around that, that's pretty amazing. It's pretty awesome. And that's when life gets interesting. And it has to do with the acknowledgement and the recognition of that being inside of you, and the practice of that recognition, the practice of that love. Loving the fact that, yeah, we've got the Spirit of the Most High inside of us every single day. And it's up to us to keep that flame alive and to fan it, to bring it into other people's lives. One of the reasons I get up and do this every day. Because I feel like, on some level, I'm guided to do it to the best of my ability. That's what I do. Trust me, I don't do it for money. I don't do it for money. Some people think I actually make a lot of money out of this. It couldn't be further from the truth. I wanted to talk about this other piece, which is this plane that I found. It's this hemp plane. This guy's building this plane completely out of hemp. He's going to fuel it on hemp. He's the Henry Ford of aeronautics. I think I'm going to save it for tomorrow so I can figure out what's going on with the images here on OBS, because they're not showing up, but I don't know. I gotta tinker with that a little bit. So I guess one of the things that I ultimately wanted to talk about today is what I just shared with you about this merging with China. China kind of having this sort of this blending going on, which has been taking place for a while. China becoming more like the U.S., the U.S. becoming more like China, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's happening. But when we see what China's offering up through its sex education curriculum, we know that it's a global agenda because it's happening everywhere. It's happening everywhere. And that ultimately the goal is to fracture, atomize, and fragment the family, do the same thing to interpersonal relationships, and ultimately the procreative process, so that the procreative process can be also controlled by the state. That's where it's all headed, at least in that direction. And you've got to have a global platform in terms of sex identity, and reformatting everything. And as we come into Pluto in Aquarius, we get into that, bringing a little astrology in here, getting into that 2024 period where there's Uranus and Gemini, Pluto and Aquarius, Neptune and Aries. It's going to be a brave new world. Brace yourselves. Brace yourselves. It's going to be a very brave new world. I could easily see, Uranus and Gemini sex robots, really sort of high quality, high level sex robots. There's going to be a period there, about 2024 to about 2028, 2029. It's going to be very weird. Saturn's going to be in Aries in 2025. We don't have any Earth until Saturn gets into Taurus, and that's going to be in 2028. And I think that's when some of the dust begins to settle a bit. But we're in for Pluto and Capricorn for roughly 18 years, Neptune and Aries for 16 years, and Uranus and Gemini for 7 years. Welcome to Huxley's Brave New World. In any case, there's plenty that you can do. It's not as if you're going to be held captive or hostage to this version of the timeline, because that would be completely disempowering. And there's plenty that you can do, and we've gone over this a number of times, and I'll go over it again. The first thing you want to do is you want to have a good relationship with your body. You have to make sure that what you're putting in your body is good for you. Stop feeding your body shit. Story just came out yesterday, and I put it over on the Clean Water Fred site, or the Clean Water Fred page, that fluoride impacts IQ. We've known this for a while now, but a brand new study came out. So you got to get off your municipal water system. If you haven't already, you've got to do that. You have to you have to decouple from drinking municipal water. And if you can, if you're in a place where you have the ability to get involved in the political process, get the fluoride out of the water. We're working on it here in Fredericksburg. So these are fundamental things. You start with what you can change, right? What you can change is what you put in your body. Then you change what your body is involved in, the output, exercise, some form of fitness, some form of discipline on a fairly regular basis. This is really important stuff. And once you can get your foundation in place, then you can build up and take on other levels of self-improvement, other levels of autonomy, other levels of personal empowerment, and working with others so that you can help others as well. But you got to start with ground zero. And as we head into Virgo, which we're going to be in about 2 days, health becomes paramount. So it's a really good time to look at your health and make changes to your life and your lifestyle. Okay, I'm gonna end her right there since I think I have about 5 minutes left in the show, and I apologize for the image thing. So it's I got to work on it. Something happened with OBS. I hope. In any case, let me just check in with you guys and see where you're at. What's going on in the various chats. I'm over on YouTube now. Let's see. Yeah, for some reason, not allowing me to put my link in today. Man, it's a weird day. Weird day. I was supposed to guess anyway. Astrology may have things up with the language of energy. Quite sophisticated. Yes, that's a good explanation. Let's see what else we have in here. Oh, Kate's going to Tokyo. Ooh. Take your chlorella with you. Rockefeller global citizens are all over the world. I recall people talking about this in the 90s. That's from 108 Dragon. Let's see, what else do we have? Christine Mose. How about a self-help book for profound depression? Look back at it now and see all the satanic principles in the subtext. They get you when you're weak to insert their messaging. That's a really good point, Christine. Very good point. What else do we have? There's Stephen. Hey, Stephen. One of those idiotic, archonic materialist zombies. Stop lumping whether a body is a male or female, one's personal gender. Preference and all might be easier problem to solve. Yep. Shari, my trans niece is off her rocker. She smells bad and her eyes are haunted. That's a form of possession, I'm afraid. I know it sounds very backwards, but I am wearing a cowboy hat today. All right, thank you for being a part of today's show. I will delve into the OBS settings here and try to get under the hood. In the meantime, use your head to discern what's real, your heart to say what's possible. From Jasper and myself, I'm Robert Phoenix. You've been watching 15 Minutes of Flame. Have yourself a great day. And as we fade out in the final degrees of Leo today and tomorrow, keep your heart open. And if there's somebody that you love and care about and they haven't heard from you in a while, let them know. Let them know that you care. Let them know that you love them. Put your arms around them if you can. Give them a physical hug, and if not, give them a spiritual hug. We need a little more of that in today's world. Take advantage of it while we have Leo still around. All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow.